Thank you, Oyana, and thank you, David, for such a warm welcome. It's a personal high for me to be at Central St. Martin's, and thank you all for coming on this Bobby Dazzler of a day on a Friday morning. I know it's hard to go into a space with no windows. So my name is Sian Sutherland. I am a serial entrepreneur, a mum of 2 grown-up boys, and most recently, 7 years ago, I created an organization with my co-founder, Frederica Magnusson, sitting there, called A Plastic Planet. I love these kind of events because I love the melting pot of all the different insights and perspectives that we get by the different panelists. And the panel that we have together with Nicholas Rochat and Dilys Williams is particularly interesting to me because one is another serial entrepreneur. Nicholas Rochat is disrupting the garment industry, proving that the impossible is possible. And then, of course, Dilys is a professor who is really challenging the creative industry to step up to a different level of responsibility, because never has it been more important for us to have the skill set of the creatives than it is now. So our topic today is going to be this small question, as you say. What a tiny question. What would Earth have us do? So I want to set the scene first with thinking a little bit of our place, planet Earth, in the wider universe. And I don't know if any of you have seen some of these incredible pictures that are coming down from the James Webb Telescope that really give us a completely different perspective and imagine us to dream bigger. We are seeing things that we have never been able to see before. The scale of the world, and beyond that, the universe that we live in. We've never seen these things before. And it makes us think, perhaps our boundaries are too small. Perhaps we need to also be thinking bigger. And we've been aware for decades now of the specialness of the planet that we live on, this beautiful green and blue marble that hangs suspended in space that we now know from those images on the James Webb Telescope is a completely unique thing. This wonderful globe that we call home. But, and I wanted to set the scene a little bit of why these events that we're at today are so important. That beautiful home is on fire. And we have caused this. And it's shocking to me when you look at only last year. We witnessed 7 extreme weather events. This year, El Nino is coming back in the autumn, and we are forecast to have even more extreme weather events. So I'm not going to dwell too much on a beautiful Friday and be the Debbie Downer of the sessions, but things are happening so much faster than we ever imagined, so we need to speed up. We always talk about the future being something that's a bit unpredictable. It's a bit risky. Who knows what's going to happen? But what we know for sure now is that our future has never been more predictable. More climate devastation. We know that this is the trajectory that we're on. We now talk about resilience rather than prevention. Fewer ecological resources. The impact of temperature has a phenomenal impact on even the way that we grow food. Last year, we grew 25% less crops in Italy alone. Everybody has seen the huge temperatures earlier this year in Spain, the impact simply on olive oil. These things that we think of as luxuries are actually absolute commodities. And we hope that we will have less fossil fuel dependency going forward. And I want to set a little context of why we at A Plastic Planet and Plastic Free are so laser-sharp focused on plastic as the lens to how we can create change. Because I live in a world where often I'm saying, look, Sian, we'll fix the plastic crisis later on. It's all about carbon. It's all about greenhouse gases. That's what we've got to focus on right now. But plastic has given us this incredible opportunity because there are no plastic deniers out there. It's something we feel guilty about every single day. So we see it as a gateway to the climate crisis. It is intrinsically connected to the climate crisis. In fact, in many ways, it has been this visible, physical canary in the coal mine to wake us all up. And when you think about carbon and greenhouse gas emissions, and people say, oh, but it's so light, it's so convenient, it's such an amazing material. It is all of those things. It's also incredibly heavy on greenhouse gas emissions. If it were a country, it would be the 5th biggest emitting country on the planet. And even if it wasn't about pollution, about the devastation, about the fact that every lungful of air that we breathe in now contains plastic, even if it wasn't about any of those things, plastic broke the system. The invention of plastic changed our entire culture of take, make, repair, refill, reuse, rent, share, to take, make, chuck it in a bin for some mythical recycling fairy to do something with that now we know nothing is actually happening with it. So it created this opportunity for us to change our system and ramp up to these giddy levels of hyperconsumption. We've had plastic for so long, it's really easy for us to think that it's material in itself. Plastic is a mixture of chemicals. Many of them are toxic. One of the things that we've been working on recently is the creation of the Plastic Health Council, bringing the science, the proof, the irrefutable proof of the impact of the plastic chemicals to all the major governmental and United Nations events. It is not like copper and aluminium or cobalt. It is simply a mix of chemicals. 13,000 chemicals are used to make plastic. 50% of them have never been tested for the impact on human health. And much as we talk now about circularity, and I'm sure many of the courses here focus on circularity, plastic will never fit into any kind of circular model. You don't recycle plastic, you downcycle plastic. And I know a lot of you will have seen this little illustration before, which I put up simply to show, I mean, can anybody tell me what is wrong with the circular economy in this visual that everybody uses and everybody refers to? What's wrong with the final one?
The bin.
There's still a bin. There's still a bin. That is not circularity. And the reason for that, and anyone here who works in the wider world of materiality, the reason for that is we take materials from nature, we take resources from nature, and then we chemically modify them. Even something as natural as leather, skin, designed by nature to go back to become the nutrient for the next stage of growth. And what do we do to it? We tan it, use chromium, heavy dyes, toxic chemicals, so that it cannot go back to nature as a nutrient. So I want to give you a provocation that imagine if we rethought materials, and instead of chemically modifying them so that they could never go back to nature as a nutrient, that instead we didn't chemically modify them, that we take from nature, we borrow them, we simply borrow them, but we keep their nutrient status so that when they eventually return to nature, which everything always does, they go back as a nutrient for the next stage of growth. And it's doable. We work in the world of materials at Plastic Free, and it's so exciting to me to see the amount of innovation that is happening in this space, particularly around nutrient-based materials. And then the other thing that we have to be careful of course, is we need to take less. Earth Overshoot Day, in the US, Earth Overshoot Day is actually the 12th of March. So this year, on the 12th of March, the US had taken the amount of material they were entitled to, that nature could replace. So Earth Overshoot Day is something that we need to be aware of. We are literally taking the resources from our children's future. We're making stuff with them. We're selling it and calling it GDP. So this fundamentally has to change. It is not about swapping one material for a slightly less bad material. It's less in the first place. Because one of the provocations I want to give you is this. I had a call the other day from a journalist saying, oh, the government, I don't know if you've heard, the government are thinking of having 7 bins in your kitchen. What do you think? Who can afford to have 7 bins? Don't you think there's a cost of living crisis? What's your opinion? And I said, well, my opinion, to be honest, is why is there 1 bin? Why is there any bin? Why have we normalized waste? We are the only species on the planet that creates waste. So that's the fundamental question that we need to answer. So we like to think of the plastic crisis in a slightly different way, as perhaps a gift, that little tap on the shoulder. So the whole of humanity, we are all impacted by plastic, to say, hey, you've gone down a toxic cul-de-sac and you need to get out of it fast. So for us, we consider it this fossil fuel awakening to not only get us to think differently about materials, but also the systems of how we live. carbon, I don't know, I can't see it, can't feel it, I can't touch it. Plastic, I feel guilty about every single day. But technology has really failed us here. And I was on a plane the other day, don't judge me, I was on a plane the other day, and it struck me, nothing's changed. Like the plane experience is the same as it was 50 years ago. The car experience, yes, we might have EVs now, but other than that, fundamentally it's the same. So it struck me that technology has actually failed us. It's so much about this little thing I hold in my hand, how it can sell me more stuff. That's where technology has focused. And what we need technology for now is to really get us to think in a much bigger, more exciting way. We haven't even bothered to replace plastic as material. We haven't bothered to invent new materials. Imagine the materials of the future that we're now going to invent in a post-plastic world. We believe passionately that creatives are the answer for this, which is why it's so exciting for us to be here with you all. But I think creators are going to need new tools. They are not trained for this new world, this post-plastic world, where we have different systems, where we have different materials, where we think about circularity in a different way. So for the last 2 years, we have designed and built a new design tool for the creative industry, built by creatives for creatives, to help them think in a completely different way, to help them feel like the smartest person in the room, to push back against that inevitable creative brief that just says, use a recycled polymer, use a bioplastic. It'll be enough, that'll give us a green tick. I'm going to show you a tiny little 60-second film that shows you what this looks like. And you'll not be surprised that as an entrepreneur, I believe equally passionately that business is the tool of change. We can't wait for governments. They're never going to regulate us in time. They will do what industry wants. So industry need to step up and they will be the tool of change. But I have never, if I look back through the big social changes in history, have they ever been instigated, catalyzed by an economist or a banker? No. It has always been the creatives. It has always been the maverick thinkers, the architects, the engineers who have pulled humanity from one system to a better system, and that's what we need right now. Always it has been this way. So we believe that design has the power to change everything, because everything is designed, even if it's a bad design. It's had an element of a creative process at the beginning. Everything we wear, the cities we live in, everything in our world is designed. So this is their moment. And we need to stop thinking that the future, it's inevitable. It's just going to happen. I read all these articles about artificial intelligence and oh, it's so terrifying. Say, you think we've got no control over this? What is wrong with us? The future doesn't just happen. It is created by us, and we need to think about it differently. But we need to do it fast. And there's too much think tanking, there's too much McKinsey, huge reports on the desks of the CEOs, there's not nearly enough action tanks. So we need to go faster. And everybody in this room, everybody watching this, you are the ones with the power. There is this wrecking ball of change that is happening right now. The future is not some distant thing in 2030. It is happening right now, today, at breakneck speed. And you all need to be part of it. We need your skills like never before. Because hope is not a theory. It is not, for me, even a noun. It's something you do every single day, something you create every single day. And one thing as an entrepreneur, because you learn very quickly how to fail, is you have to have hope, you have to have optimism. So I'm going to leave you now with this final question as I hand over to Nicholas Rochat. Because the real question for me is not about what's the most sustainable thing, what's the new material, what's the slight twist on the dial of the status quo. The real question for me is this: how are we going to live? Because we are going to have to live in a very, very different way in the very near future.